And so things were just amazing. They're just amazing throughout the entire summer. Everything is great. And I get a text from a friend. I shared funeral ceremony that was going to be for my good friend Paul. It changed me a lot. It changed me a lot. For the better, I would say now. But it was very tough at first.
How do I handle loss after graduation? It's an important question because right alongside all the wins and celebrations that come with graduation, there are also just some tough losses. You're saying goodbye to the unique rhythms of campus life. You're saying goodbye to some of your best friends, and you're also saying goodbye to the amazing experience of growing your faith with your InterVarsity chapter right by your side every single day. But today's guest had one other hard goodbye after graduation. While on a trip abroad with his sister, Justice received a message from an old classmate that a close friend from a past season of life had died unexpectedly. He was overwhelmed with sadness, and for the first time, Justice had to start learning how to navigate grief without his InterVarsity community, and that was tough. Justice joins us today to share more about the story and more about what he's learned about developing healthy rhythms for dealing with loss and grief in this new season of life. Welcome to After Four, your podcast for navigating life after graduation. I'm your host and guide, John Steele, and this one's for you, alumni. Justice, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, John, it's a pleasure to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. I am super excited to have you. Justice, by way of introduction, just really quickly, tell us three things here. Tell us what school you graduated from, what your major was, and when it was that you graduated.
Yes, so I attended and graduated from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay. There, I was able to study and double major in public relations and theology, along with a minor in peace studies. And I graduated in May 2025, so it's almost about a year since then.
Almost a year. Okay. All right. That's great. You're helping us like sort of round out this series that we've been doing. We call it our Help series, where we're sitting down with seniors, soon to be grads, and current grads like yourself who are experiencing some amount of anxiety or trouble related to life after graduation. And so we're saying like, hey, we've been doing this for a little while now. Is there any sort of help that we can provide in just some of these real life circumstances that other alumni like you are experiencing? And Justice, I know that you're coming to our time together with a particularly difficult situation that you've been kind of walking through during this first year of life after graduation. So, Justice, share your story with us, and let's see if there's some way that I can help.
Absolutely. Just starting off with just post-grad in general. Graduating, it was just such a big high. I was able to just deliver the commencement speech for my class, and so just close out just a crazy chapter. Awesome. Right after that, hopping on our little Marquette van I was driving, and we got to drive to Forest Springs for our InterVarsity chapter camp. So it was just a fun 5 days there, and they were just able to.
That's awesome.
They were just able to just meet all the other chapters here in Wise, and just have a great time. It was amazing. I still think about it day in, day out a lot of the times. And then from there, I got back to Wisconsin, and my flight was in the next 2 days. And so I came back to Houston here, and just being with family has been amazing. Being able to invest in one of my passions, personal training, has also been great. And so things were just amazing. Okay. They're just amazing throughout the entire summer. Everything is great. Cool. Keeping in touch with everybody.
Yeah.
And so kind of fasting forward here to kind of situation in October. So me and my sister, she was so generous to want to kind of offer a post-grad gift, and I just wanted to spend time with my sister too. So we actually booked a trip to Japan, Tokyo, which was insane. Super fun. And we're there for about a week and a half, and we're just having fun every day, just kind of catching up on a bond that I felt like kind of got disturbed during my time in college, since I was away 1,000 miles from home. And so while we're there, we're just having a great time. Everything, ramen's good, playing basketball with people at a local park, all these things.
Nice.
And it's like late one night. And thing about Tokyo that it is 6 hours ahead I think, of the US. And so
Okay.
it was, I think, 12 a.m. over there. And so I think it was 6 p.m. here in the US. And
Okay.
I get a text from a friend I haven't talked to in a long, long time, my good friend Amanda.
Hmm.
And she texts me on Snapchat and she's kind of like, Justice, I know we haven't talked in a long time, but I just felt like it was necessary for you to know this information. And it was quickly followed up below that with a little document that shared the kind of funeral ceremony that was going to be for my good friend Paul
Oh,
Nguyen.
wow.
And that night, I mean, I'm not gonna hide, I cried. I cried that night
Yeah. Wow.
a lot. And my sister was there, and she was consoling me, and um, I was just overwhelmed with a lot of emotions. Um, and that was 2 days before I was heading back to the U.S. And so I was
Okay.
going to be able to attend it, which, at least that felt right to me in my spirit. I'm like, okay, I'm
Yeah.
grateful I get to have this opportunity. And yeah, I got to go and just see a lot of people I haven't saw in a long time, and all of us are just able to just tell stories and um,
Hmm.
just really, really remember the life of a good friend. And following afterwards, it felt like the way I put it to myself is that it felt um, like a it was like a glass portrait, and it just kind of just dropped, just broke, and there's
Wow.
pieces.
Wow.
And just after that ceremony, trying to pick up the pieces. And it hasn't been the fastest process, the most fun
Okay.
process at first, but that is
No.
something that post grad that I just was not prepared for at all. And I think
Yeah.
that it kind of it changed me a lot. It changed me a lot for the better, I would say now, but it was very tough at
Okay.
first.
Okay. Okay. So, wow. I mean, first of all, you've heard you've received condolences from many people who know you better than I do. But I will say I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of your friend. That is loss is hard, no matter what. And I mean, loss after graduation is not unusual, but this is a very particular type of loss and pain that you have experienced and have been wrestling with. And the question that I have, like, to sort of follow this up, feels obvious, but I want to understand more about your specific engagement with loss. But tell me, like, what is it about this that has felt especially hard for, like, what has made this feel like a really difficult loss that you've experienced? Tell me about that experience for you.
Yes. Not to obviously um, nullify what had happened, but to preface all this, I have had the unfortunate background of actually the past 4 to 5 years. I know it sounds really morbid, and I apologize to those who are listening, but I mean, it's the reality that there
Yeah.
has been at least like someone relatively kind of close to me, whether it's family or a good friend or things like that,
Yeah.
who have unfortunately passed every year. And so
Wow.
it felt, I think during that time, it was during my time in college. So that's why I say like, writing that high post grad felt so nice because it's like you still kind of have that community around you. If not, but you're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
calling every day. And so I think in college when I was going through a lot of these passings, it's like I had a great community in IV, and I had great mentors and disciplers, and even
Yeah.
people who I worked with in the dorms. A lot of my RAs and my RHD were just there, and they were able to help me and guide me. Teachers who are understanding. But what makes this
Yeah.
one particularly different is that all of that structure is away, and it's just
Yeah.
me navigating, with my job and with my family who, um, they might not understand per se a lot of the emotions that kind of go into it, not because they don't want to, but because of their background. And
Right.
so I think what made this particularly difficult is that there wasn't that much of a support system there, and I had to seek that out. And Paul himself,
Yeah.
I hadn't communicated with him in some years, which also
Okay.
made it feel heavy on my heart. He was
Mm.
someone where we went and shared fourth through eighth grade together. I transferred to his
Okay.
school, and we were just we were really good friends. You know, me and him,
Yeah.
like if there was anyone who, when it came to eating lunch, me and him would literally compete for seconds and thirds. We were like that guy in dodgeball.
Nice.
Dodgeball was super fun
Yeah.
with him. People would always try to pair both of us on the same team. But I say all that to say, like, a lot of my memories with him were, it's been a lot of time. And so I think that's
Yeah.
what made this loss, because I was like, oh, I wish, there's just more time and I could, see him and talk to him. And this is before I'm not saved at this point. I didn't really understand the gospel and salvation in Jesus. And so,
Okay.
all those thoughts creep in of like, man, I just wish we'd had a chance to, this, that, and the third. And
Wow.
it all hits you on one moment, and the ebbs and flows from that have definitely fluctuated. So that's kind of,
Yeah. Wow. So I mean, there's a number of things that are standing out to me as far that are sort of like adding to the weight of this. I mean, one is, as you said, you've been dealing with loss for like years, going on like every year throughout your college career. You're experiencing the loss of like a friend or family member of some type, some sort of close loss and grief that came along with that. But you had your community that was right there. Like the community that you're doing life with all the time is right there, kind of walking through those things with you. And then you experience the transition of graduation, and you're actually having a really nice initial transition experience of like, all right, we're going to chapter camp. Love hanging out with friends. My sister and I get to go on this big trip, and then boom, you're towards the end of this trip, and you find out this friend that you've lost this friend that you haven't seen in a number of years, and that comes from a very different season of life. But like, oh boy, I wonder what if he and I had more contact over the last few years, like where was he landing kind of as far as his faith went, and just some of those kinds of big questions that you're wrestling with, all of which are sort of adding to the challenge of, and now I'm wrestling with loss in a place that I've not wrestled with it before, and that's without my InterVarsity community right there next to me. Does that feel like a sort of an adequate summary of the kind of the experiences that you've been having?
most definitely, most definitely.
Okay. So then let me ask you this. So you said it's been since like eighth grade. So it's been a good number of years since you've seen Paul, your friend.
Right.
Okay. So then, as you've navigated other moments of loss in the years since knowing Paul, I mean, like, what has that experience been like for you? You said you were with your community, but like, what has your like personal journeys with grief looked like in the past? Because there's some element of like we can understand what's happening now and a little bit of the future based on what's happened in the past. So like, how are there things that you've learned about yourself as far as how you kind of process through grief in your own unique way?
Yes, I personally have always just liked to just be someone who's always like, oh, you can bounce back from this. This is not the end. So but typically I'm a fast mover, and I think being on campus and being involved in so many things, it gave me purpose, and fulfilling what I believe is and was and it still is my calling. With other individuals and helping build their faith, and being able to provide just counsel, and being able to just be a friend, and become to those what they need. Um and so I think that purpose always had me thinking ahead and being like, okay, I'm not going to act like I didn't just go through this, but life is moving, things are moving, and people need me, and this is where I feel like, as I'm living out my purpose, this is where I feel as if I can reconcile with what just happened, by taking advantage of the now. And like I said, it made
Yeah.
it a lot easier with community and with people who honestly, like, just as something simple as like being given a hug, like just small things like
Mhm.
that, being able to
Yeah.
sit down, share a meal with people, and just talk long hours at night just about certain like these losses, and these real things that have happened. That's how I found myself able to deal with the grief. And um,
Yeah.
what my pastor would kind of say, Pastor Jake, he would say, like, being able to befriend these negative feelings, not act like they don't exist, but
Interesting.
being able to allow them to happen, but don't allow them to master me. Because
Yeah.
if I act like these losses don't really happen, and I don't really feel angry or irritated or just bewildered and confused, then I'm neglecting a part of me that I was, created to have. These are these
Yeah.
emotions that show that I care. So that's kind of how I've dealt with it in the past.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm hearing a few different things. One is that there's always been something else to kind of put your hand to. That, like, oh, there's grief, but I have something that I can kind of do alongside of that as I'm processing, and something that is meaningful. And you've had some really wise counsel that's helped you say, like, what does it look like to acknowledge the feelings that you have? You don't want to go to either extreme of, like, ignoring them or letting them just sort of master you. I think is the word that you used. And, like, so what does that look like to process through some of those feelings? Well, that those are a couple of the things that you've had. So then, how has this experience been different? Because are you having a harder time doing some of those things, or how does this time around, how has that felt different from when you were with some of that community and very purposeful things to do alongside of grieving? Yeah, what does it look like this time?
Right. This time, it's just a different environment. I have been able to attend and be a part of a local church. It's called Life Community Church, and it's
Okay.
been great. In August, I was able to go on like a little small retreat and get to know a lot of the young adults there. Um,
Yeah.
but I had not yet come to, I would say, I don't want to say comfortable level, but I didn't know a lot of them, and I didn't want to
Yeah.
be able. I didn't want to, like, it sounds like a cliche, but just like dump all this, because I'm only 2 months in there.
Sure.
I'm only two
Yeah.
months, 2 months there, and there are people there who I trust, and I did actually talk to about this when I
Okay.
found good ground to kind of process it myself. But I mean, quickly after this, I mean, there are also just a numerous amount of things that just quickly followed. Like
Mm.
um, my car got, like, I didn't get in a car accident per se, but my car had to go to the shop, and there's like this big
Oh.
mishap with it. So I was without it for 2 months when this had happened. And
Oh,
then
wow. Okay.
there are just friends who I thought we were friends, and then, it just didn't turn out. Things they just fall
Yeah.
out, and it just felt like week
Yeah.
after week it was kind of just the same pattern. And so I also had to put like my personal training on a hold, just because I didn't have that mode of transportation and just the mindset I was in. So just
Sure.
all these things culminating along with not having that.
Yeah.
And like I said, my family is amazing. I love that they push me, and I love being Nigerian. Don't get me wrong about that. But in terms
Okay.
of like
Okay.
navigating emotions, it's not the biggest strong suit for them. So being able to have someone to talk to, I had to dig deep in communicating how I felt, and being able to be
Mm.
patient with people, because people also have life going on too. Everybody post grad is navigating their own thing as well,
Yes.
and so it's
Yes.
not that I can just have that late night conversation till 2 a.m. like I did in college. It's not the same kind of thing,
Right.
and so I think that's what kind of makes this a little bit more different. Um, yes, I think that's where I'll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super helpful, because you're naming that you've been, at least by my understanding, like, you're naming that loss has continued. You talked about these number of losses that you had throughout college, but now, like, there's all of these other losses that are happening along with the loss of your friend Paul.
Right.
That, you have a certain amount, like this loss of freedom because your car has had to be in the shop for a long time. Loss of that, you say, like, this sort of personal training and some of that kind of stuff that you've been doing. You've had to put that on hold because of a lack of transportation. You've had a loss of the really close knit community that you can talk to and process through a lot of these things. And that you have people who love you and who you do trust, but who it's like, it's a different type of communication than what I have become accustomed to when it comes to processing through difficult things. So you've been experiencing loss on like a number of levels that goes along with this very like sort of pointed loss of your friend Paul, and that's a lot to be carrying around, Justice.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the nail, and I think things did not really get better until I really accepted that reality. And so that's how that was going through kind of that period of October to December for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Can you share a little bit about like maybe some of the emotions that you were experiencing during that season? Now, so I just want to call back to something that you said that like, not that it is necessarily easy now, or that you have suddenly like, okay, and now I'm over it. But that like that this has been a process that you've been going through, and that you've seen changes happening. It sounds like over the recent months. But can you name like some of the emotional experiences that you've had through that process, like how that's changed and maybe where you are now emotionally?
Right. I think the first emotion that I felt, especially when I came home from Japan and going to it was kind of like this ceremony was inside of the church at the school we used to go to. And I think first being in that place, in such a familiar place where me and him shared, especially, spiritual experiences at this church. It was just sadness. It was sadness. And a lot of people at the ceremony, it was a lot of people that we all went to school with. And I just remember, afterwards, people having light conversation and sharing laughs. And I was just there, and I was like, but I knew deep down, I'm like, I don't really feel, as if this is okay or things of that. And the third, I don't know. I just kind of was just like, I just wanted to give the emotional sadness to the situation that it deserved. Yeah. And I think that was me trying to navigate what I thought was emotional intelligence, which in that sense, it gets a little complicated because, like I said, recently when I had dealt with a lot of other grievances, like I said, my mindset was just like moving past it really fast. And so I was like, okay, if I just give this the time it needs, then things will probably get better, but that was just not the case. It wasn't the case at all. And I think this was where I entered a season where I feel like the Lord was pulling me to a season where it's like, okay, like the battle of the mind, cool. You commit your thoughts obedience to Christ. You watch the way you think, your will, I'm naming the things that make up our soul, your mind, your will, your emotion, your will. It's like you pray that prayer, not my will, but let your will be done, right? But then you get to emotion, and I realize I have like no prayer when it comes to emotion. I like when it comes to praying about emotions and how I feel, like usually a good little yap session with the Word feels like, oh, I express myself and things and the third. But being able to, like I said, to sit in that, I realized I had no prayer, no framework for how that went. And so when it came to these ebbs and flows, like I was saying, from October to December, of these emotions, it's like some days I'm happy and I'm like, well, you know what? I'm glad I was able to attend it, and I'm glad that I was able to see the family and console with them and what's the word? Lament with them and all these things. And I'm grateful that if you kept the faith that he's with you, Lord, and that was giving me peace at the time. But then, the next day would happen, and I'm kind of just like, wow. It's like it just felt like it was all over again. I just had to go through the same exact feelings and emotions again. And like I said, it's difficult when you can't talk to the people that previously you talked to with it about. And you can have these continual conversations. But there were people who did help. To name a few, my good friend Yan, my good friend Kia, and Joshua and Alexis, and there were so many people who stepped up. To just not just tell me, hey, you get back on your feet, because that's usually unfortunately, that's the advice I give a lot of people Well, fortunately, unfortunately, because
Okay.
sometimes people do need that, sometimes they don't, But they were kind of just like, hey, it's just step by step. No one's expecting you to
Yeah.
bounce back extremely quickly, and act like, oh
Mm.
man, you need to be that one who's consoling everybody else and this, that, and the third. Like, there is no expectation for that for you here, and
Yeah.
that felt so needed to hear because, I mean, if I'm being honest, during this time, I wasn't in my word, and prayer felt like
Mm.
it wasn't the usual rhythms. It wasn't day and night. Sometimes it was just me going on a walk, or sometimes it's just me laying in bed and I'm looking at the ceiling and I'm just like, Lord, and that's it. Like, it would just be like, Lord,
Yeah.
and it's just there. And so, with kind of this disruption and what's usual to me and what has worked, I also got like this frustration of like, wow, like, justice, like, does that mean that all the ministry and all these things that have happened, like, did you not learn anything from
Mm.
your previous years? Like, because I wasn't
Oh no.
navigating this the way that I thought I should. And so I think a lot of it was internal, and that's kind of just those emotions that were kind of there.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm here. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm hearing come out of this, and I mean, just a couple in particular. Is it's making me wonder. It's making me wonder if there's any chance that there was actually more. And I want to be careful how I say this because I wasn't there,
Mm.
and I don't want to put value judgments on the experiences that you were having with your chapter as you were processing through losses in the past. But do you think it's possible that there was actually more like distraction that was available to you? And distraction can be a very helpful tool to a degree. But do you think it's possible that there was actually more because there's so much ministry to be done and work to put your hands to? Is it possible that in the past, in the time on campus, that there was more opportunity for just being distracted from your feelings as opposed to really being able to process through them well? I wonder if that. I wonder if there's any possibility with that of like, oh man, I actually don't know how to just sit and feel these feelings and what is an appropriate amount of just letting the experience of my feelings come through and living into that. And then I've lost the other one at the moment. But so we'll just start there. Do you think it's possible that maybe there was higher levels of unhelpful distraction that was happening on campus so that maybe you weren't able to learn fully how to just like feel and process through your feelings without just like, oh, I'm just going to go do this really important thing instead?
I would definitely say so. And kind of like you said, it's not as negative as it could sound in terms of like using the word
Yeah.
distraction. But I mean, there's like I said, there's always something to be done, from being an RA to even have my own
Yeah.
podcast at the time and ministry at IV. There was always something to put my mind to, and so it felt like, okay, like there's all these things, and so like you said, this time it just felt a lot different. Um, and so, yeah, I think that is something that underneath all of that, like, there was great counsel, there was great support, but yes, there also
Yes.
was,
100%.
you know,
Absolutely.
there also was like what it seemed like distractions as well. So I would definitely agree.
Yeah, 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 and I'm glad that you named that because as I said, I do not want to discredit the wise counsel or the good friends or the healthy things that you're able to like. I need to just take my mind off of this for a while, and that's a good thing. And it's also something that we can sometimes do too much of, and we don't actually learn how to just feel the appropriate healthy bounds of our emotional experiences because it can be very uncomfortable and it just doesn't always move at the speed that we want it to.
Right.
And that's just really tough. I wonder if there are expectations that you're placing on yourself of this is the right way to grieve or this is the right timeline for grief to process through. And once you start coming up against those places of like, well, typically by now I'm just feeling a lot better. Or, I feel like I'm able to more easily accept the reality that I'm living in. And I wonder if maybe you're just placing some unnecessary expectations on yourself of how long something should take in this process.
For sure, for sure. And that's where, I would say a lot of my upbringing is like, hey, there's an expectation that you are going to be the best, and there's nothing wrong. There's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with, telling your kid that, or having friends who encourage you to do that. Like it can be a powerful mindset. But then
Yeah.
when you are approached with the realities of life, the good and the bad, being able to have a compass that says, hey, you know, we are called in Christ. We're called to be conquerors. We're more than conquerors through Him who lived and died for us. That's our Lord, and that's
Hmm.
amazing. But at the same time, I mean, the one thing that was kind of on my mind as I was kind of at the back end of this in December, and as I'm leading up to Urbana, which I received just a lot of just confirmation and just consolation about what I was going through,
Hmm.
um, was just this idea of like abiding and dwelling. And I think
Okay.
in terms of the expectation of myself of, like you said, having that timeline of like, oh man, well, you know, we can just we're gonna overcome this. We're gonna conquer this, and we're gonna be good. We're gonna get through this.
Yeah.
Um, and that expectation of seeing this as something to get through or to get over is where I felt like that was kind of where I misstepped, I would say.
Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. I mean, just as the reality is that there are some wounds that we just carry with us that, maybe they are no longer maybe they're no longer open wounds, but they can be things that can still be kind of tender and that we can still see on our skin, quote unquote.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, I mean, that's if you've ever had an injury that you have fully healed from, but you still have a scar. Like we don't necessarily have this expectation that our body just rids itself of all scars. It's like that's just what my body does naturally.
Yeah.
And I think that there are some of those things emotionally as well, especially when it comes to people that we love and loss, to say, like, man, there's always just going to be kind of a tender spot. And maybe I don't think about it quite as often. Maybe it doesn't hit me quite as hard. But even so, there is still this thing that I carry with me through life.
Yeah.
And maybe it starts to move from less of a burden and more of a gift that you can give to other people who are experiencing hard times, and to tell them your story and your journey with loss and grief and some of the things that you've learned through good steps and missteps in the process. And but that even so, it's still like, yeah, man, this is something that every now and then it's still just kind of it's a tender spot for me. And
Yeah.
there may be some level of acceptance of just saying, like losing my buddy Paul is something that's just gonna hurt, like in one way or another, for the rest of my life. And that's not because I'm deficient or I've done grief wrong. It's because this is just what grief looks like in a broken world where we lose people like this. And that's easier said than done, but that may be a portion of the reality that you are living into right now.
Right, right. And I absolutely love what you said. I think your second part about being able to not just testify about it, but I think when you are able to hear someone else's story and not immediately implant yourself in the story and be like, well, and then you start thinking about how you would do it and you would grieve through it or you would do it, and you're listening to
Yeah.
someone. I think this experience has really shown me like, hey, like when you love others, it's not always a matter of giving the best advice or telling them this, then, and the third, but it's being able to sit with them. And the greatest example of that is our high priest, is Jesus, who's able to empathize with
Mm.
us, as Scripture testifies. And the last part too, like Paul, and I think a couple weeks ago, I was able to actually visit his family.
Mm.
It'd been a long time coming, and I knew I wanted to do it, but I just wanted to do it at a point where I felt like I was ready, and so I actually was able
Yeah.
to. And the parents are completely cool with me disclosing all this, acts for permission and everything. But we had
That's
we had
awesome.
a great conversation, just talking about Paul, and even his brother was able to come, and we all took a picture. But just I think being able to sit there and I'm not an expert. I'm a listener. I'm a listener,
Mm.
and at the same time, I didn't have all the answers at that time too. I'm still feeling the pain as well. So being able to
Yeah.
just sit in that space and yeah, just be a listener. I think it helped me to love a lot deeper than maybe what I'm used to as well.
Hmm.
And not always put a period at the end of what people say.
Yeah.
But allow that there could be three dots, or it could be a comma. It doesn't always have to be a finished sentence, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we kind of learn that abiding, that dwelling, that long suffering love. So yeah, and it's not perfect, but it's progress.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, the conversations we've had leading up to this one, there's been all these places of like, okay, based on these things, like here's some of the brainstormed ideas together that will help you take next steps here. And honestly, just as I listen to you talk through these things, I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of these things the things that I would recommend or encourage you in. It sounds to me like the Lord has already been faithfully leading you through this. And some of those things are just the slowing down and recognizing like, oh, there's just more work for me in just feeling these feelings and understanding like, okay, a healthy pace of working through this. And as you said, you already named off several friends who have been extremely helpful, and finding places where you do have community, even if it's not right there in your dorm, or your chapter members that are like right there with you every single day, but you do have people that you've been able to lean into this with, and who have been able to encourage you and walk through this. And then that I really love the fact that you sat down with your friend's family, and that you said, I wanted to give it time until I felt like it was like healthy and appropriate, like it was the right time to do it, because there's a certain amount of like, hey, this is a very difficult, traumatic experience, and we have to be careful about how far we wade into sort of exposure to some of these kinds of moments.
Mhm.
But you've identified another place of like, oh, this could be healing for me, and maybe for Paul's family as well, to go and sit down and to connect with one another and to tell stories, and to grieve together, but also to have moments of hope with one another. Like Paul knew Jesus, and that is something for us to celebrate. And those are really great. I think that's a really helpful. Maybe not everybody who's listening in who has experienced loss will be able to go to someone in that particular way, but it does make me wonder, are there places where you can sort of, in a healthy way, revisit a space with someone and to process through some of those experiences that you've had? And maybe for somebody that has experienced loss just from my InterVarsity chapter or something, I'm not on campus with them anymore. It's like, hey, maybe you can organize a reunion and get back together. And even though you don't get to spend this time together all the time, you can still reminisce and tell stories, and then send one another back out into the world for what happens next. And so, it sounds to me like there's been some really healthy steps that you've gotten to take, even if it hasn't been perfect. Justice, can I recommend just a couple of other resources for you before we close out our time together that might be helpful as you continue kind of through this process?
Absolutely, John. Please do.
Awesome. So one of them is from our podcast here. We had a conversation about a year ago that was talking about like, man, when I'm sort of navigating difficult times after graduation, and just like seasons like the dark valley, the Psalm 23, the valley of the shadow of death kind of experience. And that's episode 174. And it's called "When Right Paths Meet Dark Valleys." When right paths meet dark valleys, and it's about hope for the road ahead. And so there's some helpful rhythms that my guest Jason talks through, that he invites people to consider, like some prayerful rhythms that can be helpful for processing through difficult times with the Lord after graduation. So there might be some useful encouragements for you from that episode 174, and I'll send you this stuff after we wrap up too. Another resource that every alum should remember is InterVarsity Press. IVP, we've got a lot of great resources through IVP, and there's more than these two, but two that I'll recommend to you. a couple of books. One is called A Chronicle of Grief, Finding Life After Traumatic Loss.
Okay.
And then another is called Grieving Wholeheartedly, Bringing Healing to Every Part of Your Soul. And both of those might just be some interesting books to read and consider. They both of them have been released just in the last few years here. One of them very recently. Justice, I'm so thankful for you and for your willingness to share. This is difficult stuff to process through, and I'm grateful for your willingness to do it.
Yes, absolutely. I am great to be able to have, this chance to be able to kind of disclose a lot of this and talk about the realness of it, the rawness of it. I know people have spaces in their life groups and their small groups to have these discussions. And I don't know if people really believe that they can have those discussions in those small spaces. So I hope this is hope that you can talk to someone, you can talk to your discipler or whoever it might be in that space when you're an IB or a post grad. There are those resources. And it's okay. It's okay to not be okay. But allow people in. And I think having that vulnerability is key to a lot of healing.
Alumni, experiencing loss after graduation is just going to happen. Whether you're mourning the loss of a season of life, or the day-to-day rhythms with your InterVarsity community, or like Justice, the passing of a friend or loved one, loss is a part of life. And even though we all experience it, there just is no detailed roadmap for it. It's simultaneously a very standard and a very unique process. But I think there are a few takeaways for all of us from our time with Justice today. 1, balance is important. Feel your feelings, and as best as you can, be okay with sitting in the sadness of it all. But it's also okay to distract yourself when you need a break. Both are helpful and healthy parts of navigating grief. It's just a matter of discerning the right amount of each. 2, invite people in who can help you process. Maybe that's a parent or someone from church, or maybe it's a fellow InterVarsity alum, a past small group leader, or your campus staff. Invite someone into the process who can check in, who can listen, and who can just be with you. Last, remember that Jesus is with you and that he understands your sadness. He's a friend to the grieving, and he offers unending hope. Don't forget to engage with Jesus as you process the experience. And just one bonus idea here as well, be gracious and patient with yourself. Grief just takes time. And when you do start feeling better, don't beat yourself up about it. There's no shame or guilt for finding hope as you process loss. If you wanted to catch the episode that I recommended to Justice, I put a link to it in the show notes. Also, if you're a senior or a recent college grad and you would like to join me on the podcast for a conversation like this one, reach out to me. Send us a DM on Instagram at After4Pod. I would love to see if I can help you with the specific issue that you're having about life after graduation. Justice, thank you again for joining us today and for sharing so vulnerably, and blessings as you continue to navigate grief after Paul's passing. Alumni, we're going to take a 2-week break, and then we will be returning for a new series. We're going to be talking about 4 common barriers that make it hard to say yes to Jesus in our work and calling. I think you're going to find it extremely helpful, and I'm excited to share it with you. Come back in a couple of weeks for that. Until then, consider sharing this episode with someone who needs to hear it, and I will see you in the after, alumni. Thanks for listening to After 4. This podcast is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Santera, edited by Caleb Leppert, and our After 4 theme music was written and performed by John Steele.